expressed on the internet would be censored.
We are live. We are live. This is real. Welcome back to Unauthorized Opinions, UOPod.com. Like, share, subscribe.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way.
I literally went to the polls with nothing in mind. I saw a can of orange soda in the parking lot. And I was like, yeah, there we go. An unopened can of orange soda just chilling in the parking lot. I was like, yeah, I got to vote for Trump, dude.
Your podcast sucks. It's mental, mate. It's absolutely mental.
I'll be honest, I thought it was kind of offensive when you talk so much about the Loch Ness Monster.
Political climate.
And Andrew, treat yourself, okay? Especially if you start, I don't know, getting in good with homeless people.
Unauthorized Opinions, streaming everywhere at uopod.com. Cockle doodly doodly doo, man. Have you enjoyed watching the beatings? Have you enjoyed, as I adjust my microphone, it's that time of year, the hot heat of the summer, where the microphone decides to readjust itself. Sirens are going by. That's a fire truck. We'll get it soon here. There we go. I think that'll do. Donkey. It's the time of year every 4 years where the Olympics get together, everybody from across the nation. And, just like all the Olympics of the past, what's going on here? Who's producing this show? Putting my microphone in a wrong position. It's called consistency, people. Who doesn't remember the Olympics of the past where Snoop Dogg was carrying the torch, where Peyton Manning was commentating on gymnastics, where drag queens were bringing out the flame to Paris? We all remember that in the 90s and the 2000s. We all remember these things. And we talked about this last week where they mimicked or mocked the Last Supper. Very offensive to Christians. You can bring up the idea to do that to other religions. Of course, they wouldn't. We brought up the possible testicular showcase that was on hand. You can go back and watch that from last week's episodes and the clips if you'd like. But now, the hottest track, the biggest single coming out of the Olympics, like a CD was released, just like in the 90s when compact discs were a thing. The biggest thing is the women's boxing category. And it's for all the wrong reasons. Just like when we get Caitlin Clark in the WNBA trending for a couple months at least. It wasn't because Caitlin's so awesome at basketball. It was because of racial and gender politics. And in that case, it was, we're trying to support the women, and now we need to shut the woman down because she's too good and she's white. Now we fast forward a couple months to the Olympics and this women's boxing fiasco, and people aren't necessarily supporting the women from the outright. They're seeing them get beaten up, and then they're saying, hey, something's wrong here. And the reason this is allowed to persist before we get too far into it is because nobody cares about women's boxing, right? They don't care about women's basketball. They don't care about women's boxing. So in order for something to light a fire under this and for it to get to attention, there has to be something wrong. What was wrong in the WNBA was a white girl who has extraordinary basketball skills and isn't a flaming leftist is the reason why we're paying attention to that. And they don't like that. They want it to be an activist. So now in women's boxing, what you have is the most hardcore activism you could possibly have. That is the potential of a man fighting a woman. And that's what's bringing attention to the sport. Gone of the yesteryear or the Canada versus U.S. Olympic sprinting. They can talk about the gymnastics if they want. We remember that girl dropped out because she was sad. But this year, it's all about, is there a guy fighting women? Is there two guys fighting women? And so far, what we have up to date, let me bring you guys up to date to where we are in the man fighting woman saga. On one hand, you have people saying it's good that people who identify as women are getting to fight where they want to fight. That's basically the Olympics point of view, right? the Olympics say, this is a woman. What is a real woman? I can't tell you what a woman is. It's anyone who feels like a woman. That's the very, anti-Matt Walsh stance that the Olympics are taking. Then you have the, sort of down the middle take, and I was going to say right wing, but most people agree with this, where you have, at the very least, someone with manly characteristics, the testosterone of a man, possibly intersex, possibly just a man at birth. Nobody, some people know, and and this is a travesty. They're beating up women. That's sort of the most people's take. Then you have the alt left and the alt right take, and I don't mean like alt right and how people used to say it. I mean the alternative take on these sides is, hey, this is just an ugly woman. And that's where we're at here. The left wing has basically decided, and they did this exact same thing in the WNBA. They've basically decided that the uglier you are, the more we want to put you out there and the more we want to defend you, because they don't like attractive people in the left wing media. So I've seen from some left wing activists, some left wing political commentators, that this is just an unattractive woman who's always been considered a woman, and, how dare you say this? But on the other hand, we've seen some right-wing people, and I have some specifically in my mind, who say, hey, this is also just an ugly woman. They did the same thing in the WNBA. This one girl said that the reason why the white girls get more attention than the black players in the WNBA, and she was white, Cameron Brink, I think was the girl's name, she said it was because her teammates were more masculine, and she would like the less masculine people, the more masculine women to take the spotlight. So at the height of it, this is women being replaced by men. That's, of course, this is all alleged. It's all alleged. You can't prove the Patriots wrong. At the height of it, you've got the worst case scenario is men replacing women in the sport. Somewhere around the middle, you've got women and left-wing people and right-wing people coming together to say, hey, we need to support the ugliest women possible and push them out there. And I'm not talking about average people. I'm talking about women you would look at and think that they're men, like we have here, at the best case scenario for that. So it's really weird, because the average woman not wanting to offend people is going to result in her spot being taken by men, or at the very least, extremely unattractive women who wouldn't get attention otherwise, even though women strive to be seen for their looks and their beauty and whatnot. It's a very strange scenario, and this is what a lot of people are fighting for. Now, to recap a little bit, we had the first boxer named Iman Khalif, I believe was the name, beating up this Italian girl who said she couldn't withstand more than one punch, and the first punch broke her nose. We had her come out and say, I don't have anything against trans people, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to be mean. It's fine that I got punched in the face, tra-la-la. So that was the first stance there. Then we have this Asian named Lynn from the Philippines, who I will get more in depth on. We have that person beating up women as well. Both boxers have been stripped from competitions. Lynn was stripped of a bronze medal. The other, Khalif, was kicked out of the same tournament, going for the gold medal. So they both have been kicked out of international boxing tournaments before. The Olympics brings them in. They beat up a couple girls. And now the argument is, are these women or are these men? And what the International Boxing Association said, the IBA, is said, we tested both of these people and they're men. And the official stance from the Olympics was that, we recognize they got disqualified, but it wasn't a good testing. They weren't given any time to refute it, and so on and so forth. So the Olympics is saying, we don't trust the IBA. They disconnected with them. They disavowed them a few years ago. And they said, we don't trust the IBA. We're going to have our own boxing committee, but we're not going to test anyone for anything. They have stopped testing for gender. I believe it was in 1999. So the Olympics is like, we don't believe the IBA. They're crooked. They're Russians. That's what it really comes down to. The IBA is predominantly Russian. A bunch of Eastern European guys there operate it. And they don't like that because Russia bad circa 2020 or whenever that war started, 2022. That's when we started all saying Russia's bad. So that's where the Olympic stance is that you can't trust the International Boxing Association. Trust our thing, even though we don't really test anyone for anything. Trust us, they're women, believe all women and everything. So here's their latest. In today's IOC Paris 2024 briefing, this is from 5:30 on yesterday, 5:30 a.m., great time to put it out. IOC President Bach said, I repeat here, this is not a DSD case. This is about a woman taking part in a woman's competition, and I think I've explained this many times. But what's intended was, I repeat, here, this is not a transgender case. This is about a woman taking part in a women's competition. And I think I've explained this many times. So they first started saying this isn't the idea of, a transgender person. And now they're saying, oh, okay, we can't. First they said we can't be sure this isn't a transgender person. Then they correct and say, actually, this is not a transgender person. This is just a woman. But what the IBA found, at least for Khalif's position, was that this was a man with the chromosomes of a man, and which is XY, and therefore they should not be competing against women. And as you know, people can have elevated testosterone levels. They can go on hormone suppressants. They can go on hormone replacements. The correct way to determine if somebody is the gender they say they are, the easiest way is to just do a DNA test and check to see if they're men or women. Now, another outlet called Redux is really, they focus on transgenderism and men and women's sports. So, and we'll keep our opinions of this outlet to the side for now. Run by a communist. Talk to me about that again later. International Olympic Committee was warned by male boxers, World Boxing Organization vice president said. So you had the IBA saying that these were men boxing women, and then they say, the doubters and the Olympics say Russia bad, ran by Russia, we don't trust this organization. Now you have the WBO, the World Boxing Organization. Not exactly nobody. The WBO, you've probably heard them be announced as a belt that somebody would win along with 6 other belts, because boxing has an insane amount of organizations. But the WBO is another boxing organization that said that these are men. And so if you want to go around and do case by case basis and tell me why these boxing organizations are discredited, I'm listening. But to put it in UFC terms or MMA terms, if you're going to tell me that the UFC is lying, Bellator is lying, PFL is lying, Karate Combat's lying, I'm going to start to think that you're lying. So let's see what it says here. A Hungarian sports official has come out and stated that Algerian boxer Romain Khalif is not female. Istvan Kovac, the European vice president of the WBO and former secretary general of the IBA, so there's... If you want to argue they're all crooked, go ahead, told Hungarian press that he had warned the IOC, the Olympic Committee, about males participating in women's boxing as early as 2022, but nothing has been done. In a shock statement made to Magyar Nemzet yesterday, Kovacs confirmed the speculation surrounding the Algerian boxer, that is Khalif, adding that it had been known as early as 2022 that Khalif was biologically male. The problem was not the level of Khalif's testosterone, because that can be adjusted nowadays, but with the result of the gender test, which clearly revealed the Algerian boxer is biologically male. He added that a total of 5 boxers had been examined, including Khalif, by the International Boxing Association, and all of them, quote, were indeed men. He asserted that he personally reported the shocking result immediately to the Olympics committee, but, quote, as unbelievable as it is, they have not responded to this day, end quote. The retired boxing champion also commented that he recently spoke with former women's world champion Maria Kovacs, who bitterly remarked that in modern women's boxing, quote, there's a 20% chance that one of the athletes will suffer a testicular injury, which to me sounds like a joke that there's a chance that they're a man. Now, this is not the only person or the only people that came out against this. Clarissa Shields, who is a boxer, and we can bring that up. She is a Olympic gold medalist 2 times over, and she has come out and said, I can't believe the IOC did that, so I'm going to bring that one up for you right about meow. And this is something I wrote about. Women should fight against women, she said, and we'll go down to her quotes. Again, this is available at theblaze.com if you want to check that out. I don't even see how the Olympics could do something like this, Shields told Fox News. It's unfair. I just can't believe that it's being done, and I just couldn't imagine it happening to me. Every person has the right to practice sport without discrimination, is what the IOC came back saying, and saying that they were saddened by the abuse that the two athletes are currently receiving. Of course, they've changed their tune now to be like, wait a minute, these aren't transgender people. These are actually just women with, high levels of testosterone who look like men but act like women, I guess. In contrast to the reports, blah, 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 Shields told Fox News she could understand the devastation the Italian boxer was feeling after her loss to Khalif, the alleged man. It shouldn't be ruined due to a man. And I think that the Olympics definitely dropped the ball, she said. At 17, I was in the Olympics, so I hadn't even fully developed as a woman, so I couldn't imagine getting inside the ring with a biological man. All I'm saying is men should fight against men, women should fight against women, and transgenders should fight against transgendered. So that's not an unreasonable stance at all. You've got 2 boxing associations saying that these were men, saying that these people have been confirmed to be men through their chromosomes. And now the Filipino boxer Lin Yuting fought again today, and it was against a Hungarian woman, I believe. Bulgarian boxer Svetlana Staneva. And after she lost, surprise, surprise, she threw up the D-Generation X symbol. Just kidding. She threw up the symbol saying that she is XX there. Me, XX. I'm a real woman. I'm going to take it as far to say that she probably means it is not a real woman that she was facing. Let's go find some more footage here. Here's 20 seconds of footage. He absolutely dominated. This is against who is it against? Was it an Irish fighter? It was a different Eastern European fighter, Uzbekistani. So what I noticed when I was watching this fight, and I have about, I started watching MMA and UFC probably when I was 5 years old. I started watching it seriously probably when I was like 13 years old. So I've been watching it for my entire life. I've been watching women's MMA since it existed. So you can't tell me that I don't have experience in that. They're in the UFC all the time. I digress. In that, you can tell me I'm wrong. You can give me some tests if you'd like. But I tend to believe, in my opinion, that these biological tests are correct based on what I've seen and the style they're fighting. You can go as far to say you can see Lynn's musculature on the arms there are not that of a woman. He fights like a lanky guy who's very confident, right? You don't normally see this in women at all. Even at the highest level, you don't see women acting like this. You don't see women with this type of composure where they're super like swagged out, if we're going to use a ridiculous term like that. If when they're super cocky, you don't, I won't say never, but you almost never see that. So what I saw when I was watching that fight was, this looks like a guy fighting. This is how a guy is fighting. He's has his hands down. He can pop up, sort of like Sean O'Malley fights sometimes, where they know they're faster than them. And the female fighters, they stick to fundamentals because that's what got them there. The discipline, short bursts like this Uzbekistani fighter did. She got in a couple close uppercuts, but it wasn't powerful enough to stop them. So these allegedly male fighters are boxing in 2 different weight classes. They're both going for gold, I believe, in the next couple days. It has to be probably tomorrow and Tuesday. And that means they're guaranteed to have a medal. And what this is another travesty. The Olympic Committee, who doesn't test, for those of you who don't know, they basically leave it up to whichever governing body for whichever sport it is. So, the whole thing with Leah Thomas and the NCAA swimming went on, and swimming decided no men and no transgender people and women swimming there. So in the Olympics, you're going to see, some girls with a huge wingspan and wing shoulders, but they're going to be girls. And the lanky, weird-looking guys on the other side. And then the medley. You're going to see that in cycling because the English women, the British women, God bless them, said, we're not racing against men. So that committee's out. There are similar rules in other sports, which I'm forgetting right now. Let me see if I can remember what they are. I'm not sure what they are. They're I'm not even going to name them because I don't want to be wrong. Okay, there's like 3 or 4 more sports where they are using, of course, the committees of other sports, international governing bodies, and those don't allow transgender athletes or anything like that either. But for the rest, including boxing, the Olympics says, okay, we got our own committee, and they're supremely relaxed about it, right? So they don't trust the IBA is what they're saying, because they already condemned them. They'd be foolish to come back and be like, well, the IBA is right, even though we don't trust them to, test for our sport or be the governing body for our competitions. But now you have the WBO coming in and saying the same thing. And let's be honest, people can say that it was born a woman, it's born intersex. You can say it's a girl with manly features if you're one of these mean girls and you're just like, it's okay, she's just ugly. We want all the ugly girls at the forefront, which is an argument we're hearing from WNBA players, is that ugly women deserve more shine, I guess. But if it's true, and I believe it is, based on the way they fight, that it is a man in both categories, I believe the test results that they came back with the chromosomes. I don't know why they would make that up. Khalif and Algerians are making things up. In my opinion, again, they're saying there's a big conspiracy from the IBA to make sure Algeria doesn't get any gold medals, and that's why they're against them. And I can bring that up, I think, because it's a ridiculous assertion. And of course, they're saying it's not an intersex person. I'm going to bring this back up because there's more in here that we can get to about it not being, quite what they say. So the IOC called the IBA's testing arbitrary and said the 2 fighters were suddenly disqualified without any due process. The Italian press agency cited a gay-centric Italian communications company that claimed Khalif is actually intersex and not transgender. In contrast to the reports that have been circulating, the Algerian athlete is not a trans woman. From the information we have about her, she is an intersex person who's always socialized as a man. See, even if that were true, that would still not necessarily mean you get to fight as a woman. So if your testosterone's way too high, you can't fight in the category, whether you're a man or a woman. So just because they chose for this person, if that's true, and I don't believe it, if it was an intersex person and they chose to have them live their life as a female, they seemingly got that one wrong, or to the extent they got it wrong that you shouldn't be able to, compete against other women. Because if your argument is there's an abundance of intersex women entering women's sports, it might be because they're stronger than the other women, and that's why they're able to get to, Olympic gold medal matches. Does that make sense? If you're saying that, it just so happens that 2 gold medal contenders at the Olympics are intersex, wouldn't that mean that there's an overrepresentation of intersex people in women's sports? And wouldn't then that logic lead to you to believe that maybe there's some sort of advantage? Like if we've got like 21 armed people in Major League Baseball, wouldn't that make you think that there's some sort of advantage? Whereas in the rest of sports and the rest of the world, you don't see, if ever, see any one-armed people, because there has been a one-armed guy in the major leagues. Yes, there has been. Look that up. We'll look it up in a second. If there was all of a sudden 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, if the 2 starting pitchers in the major leagues were one-handed guys, wouldn't you just be like, there might be something to the one-handed guys here? There might be something to that. Jim Abbott, a remarkable baseball player, 10 seasons in the major leagues with only one hand. I was wrong about having one arm, but I think my point's taken here, right? I remember seeing this as a kid. He would throw the pitch. He would quickly put his glove back on his pitching hand. Amazing stuff. But if you got 6 guys with one hand throwing in the major leagues, you might start to think something is happening here with the one-handed pitchers, you might start to think that there's an advantage to be had. So again, I look at this fighting, and if you're not seeing this, it means it was taken down. I look at this fighting and I see, and you don't see women do that when they're way above their skill level. That's just one of the things. I'm focusing on that because it's the most obvious. But the speed difference and everything else, the musculatureness of the person, the way they look, the way they act, the way they throw punches, and in Khalif as well, clearly more power than the girls. The way he moves, the way he acts is, I could get in a lot of trouble for this, but I think everybody's thinking the same thing. When is it going to be enough? When are women going to do the things that the swimmers did? A whole bunch of swimmers came out and spoke out against it. The cycling women did it, spoke against it. When are they going to do that? When are these women going to say, I don't want to be punched in the face? Because there's a finite window as to where people are going to say, we need to step in. And that was one of the things I thought about when preparing for this podcast is, do we blame the women? And I think when you have the IOC placing people in front of them, maybe you know who this person is, maybe you don't. Maybe you see just another name on a paper. Maybe you're from Uzbekistan. But I'd imagine in the boxing world, just like in any other sport, you would have heard about this person. And I understand that a lot of people are too weak or too cowardly to come together and say no. That happened, during COVID, during lockdowns. But there's not enough people willing to come together to say no. But after the first fight where this person won, or even this fighter, I'm not sure why you would fight. I mean, maybe you can win. I believe one person has beaten Khalif before. Like I said, this doesn't mean they're the greatest fighters in the world. There's the old adage of the MMA fighter named Fallon Fox, a guy who transitioned and started beating up chicks. He lost a fight to a woman. You can be more skilled than a guy in anything. It's just that they have the innate power and athleticism literally born into them that women don't have. And that's why people can walk off the street and beat women at certain sports. I'm not saying it happens often. I'm not saying you can do it to somebody in a professional setting. But in a lot of cases, you put in a man, he's going to require less training to beat a woman than it would be the other way around. That's just the facts. So when are these women going to stand up for themselves? It should have been in this last fight. This woman should have just I would get in the ring, let the bell ring, and say, no, I'm not fighting. Or maybe don't even let the bell ring. I would say the best thing to do is show up and make a public statement in some way that you're not fighting a guy. And I get that women don't want to be controversial, but what happens? I mean, this is a thing that shouldn't get this far. The Olympic Committee should put a stop to it. All these men in place should put a stop to it, but they don't care. And the idea that all these left-wing people are on the same side as the Olympics, this gigantic corporation that doesn't love you and just wants to exploit the countries that it's in. Same with the World Cup. They build like 5 stadiums and they're like, see you later. Thanks for robbing the taxpayer of all this money to build this. You really trust the Olympic Committee to tell you that they're doing the right thing? The World Health Organization, you're going to trust them? Are you going to trust them anymore? You're going to trust the left-wingers, trust the most corrupt, gigantic multinational corporations, and then they say they're on the side of the people. They trust the gigantic unions. They trust people. As long as they say the right things to them, these left-wingers will say, oh, you guys are mean. That's the biggest fear. The biggest driving force behind the average person who's not political is fear. I was at a golf event recently, and the fear that people live in about not wanting to say the wrong thing, the communications people, the people in their day-to-day lives, the people, even professional athletes who are golfing, even people in business who it's their company. There's no way they can be fired. I asked a question about Justin Trudeau. They're just like, oh, I would hope that he's more focused on politics. I would like there's so much fear driving how regular people talk. And I've been out of this world, the regular people world, for I want to say 7-8 years now. the freedom you have to be in a job where you can talk, when you can speak freely. And I'm not saying going around like, we're not calling people N bombs. We're not, just going up to people and slapping them. We're not just trying to overtly ruin people's days. But in terms of speaking normally, the majority of the population doesn't do this. I don't know if you realized it. Maybe you're lucky enough to be in a job where you don't have to censor yourself. But the fear around people when they're around other people, the fear of people when they're around other people versus when they're in private is so high. And it's even worse than when I got out of regular types of occupations, regular work. It's gotten so much worse. So I get that there's this idea that these women don't want to be perceived to be mean, but this is just like, who's going to care? Who's going to be that angry towards you? Yes, people are going to send you emails. Yes, people are going to message you on social media, but I'm of the Tyler, the Creator creed on this, where he said, the famous rapper, he says, just turn off your screen. Look away from the screen if these things offend you so much. The counter argument to that is, oh, I deserve to be able to do this when I'm free. You don't need it if you're a boxer. You don't need to go on social media. You don't need to look at your hate mail. Nobody should be sending you death threats. But what's better? What's a better scenario here for these girls? Take a little bit of online hate until it brushes over, because it always brushes over if you don't cower, if you don't apologize, you stand firm, it always brushes over. Take that hate, or live your life knowing you could have been an Olympic medalist if it wasn't for a guy beating you up. That's the stance. That's the choice women have to make. They've done it in swimming. They've done it in cycling. They've done it in other sports. It's only a matter of time. Or you can get punched in the face. Because like I said, there's a short window where people will say, we need to support these people. We need to help them. But they will only help you to the point where you start helping yourselves as well. Unauthorized Opinions podcast. The bonus episodes are available at patreon.com/UOPod. You can go there and join. We have 11 members and growing. We want you to join. We want you to throw in a couple bucks so we can do more of these. There is 3 ways to sign up. You can help us become Joe Rogan with a $7 per month subscription. And what that means is we'll be as rich as Joe Rogan over here if you pay $7 a month. That's pretty rich if you ask me. You can also become a Raptors super fan. The Raptors super fan is a guy who somehow has been able to go to every single Toronto Raptors home game since they became a team. And, that's $15 a month. Or you can be an unauthorized person for $40 a month. And, you can suggest commentary for us to do on the show. You can suggest videos, and we have done that before for a couple lucky people. You will get bonus podcasts. We had one with Uncle Hack that you can't see. You'll see me with a shaved head. We've got bonus content coming again soon. And what we did, as I mentioned, we went on a golf tournament, a charity golf tournament. Did some interview with some NHL players. You'll see that. Went to a tech conference. That stuff is overdue. We got to get that up, but it is coming. And we had some good arguments there that you don't want to miss. You'll also see backlogs of comedy sketches that we've done with different comedians. And I guess the thumbnails aren't available either. We have podcasts with Anomaly from, I believe, the winter time yet in December. So you'll get all that at patreon.com/UOPod. Please consider going over there and chipping in a few bucks, or you can super chat on our YouTube channels. We appreciate it a lot. Should we end it there, or should we make fun of some fashion? What we've been noticing on the podcast is women's fashion is out of control. And this is a lot more of a lighthearted than what we've been talking about. But I've been watching some baseball recently, and the women's attire, the announcers, is out of control. We've been watching some Gordon Ramsay food stars. The women's suits are out of control. So this might be Kamala Harris's picture. I'm not sure. But we have so many questions. You just type in 2024 women's suits. For some reason, jeans come up. But this is what's happening right now, ladies and gentlemen. These jeans. I mean, I thought this was 1998, the wide jean heavy metal era. I'm not sure what this is. Let me tell you what people will think of when they see you in this. I think we might have more. I don't know if this is a guy or a girl. I'm not sure exactly. Is that Jared Leto? That's not Jared Leto, right? Would that be an insult to call that Jared Leto? Would that be an insult to Jared Leto, or would that be an insult to the girl who's wearing this suit and this makeup that makes me think she's Jared Leto? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think I'm going to get any confirmation from anybody, actually. And then I think we have another one. Here's more gigantic baggy jeans and a jean ensemble. What is this? A lignée? A line? I don't know what this is called. Decline. This is outrageous. So this is actually what it looks like to men. If you're concerned, if you're ever wondering what the perception is when you wear the baggy jeans and the baggy suits as a woman, this is the perception you're getting to any guy who's over 30 years old. Steve Harvey and a certain number of other select black comedians who were very popular in the 90s and athletes who dressed like this in the late 90s and early 2000s. This is where you're taking that style from. So, it's my understanding that that a lot of gay guys are in the fashion industry, and they probably want to, make women less appealing to men so that they can have the men. I think that's what's happening here. They've taken the style of the black entertainer and or athlete from the mid to late 90s and early 2000s, and they said, let's put women in this. It's baggy, it's expensive, you can't really tell what's going on, you look like Steve Harvey. Let's go with that. And I'm not just making this up. This is NBA drafts from the 90s. Okay. Lamar Odom, we probably know who he is because he was with a Kardashian. Maurice Taylor, that's a football player, I think. Very baggy. Tim Thomas, another NBA player, very baggy. As you can see, I mean, these are tall guys. But the overly baggy suit was of the time. You can't tell me that it wasn't. And now we fast forward over to this, and we've just got, we've got our diversity. Thank God for that. But we've got gigantic baggy suits and baggy jeans, and it's like, what are we doing? Steve Harvey, everybody. There's some sort of weird movement going on. There's some sort of weird movement going on with left wing, and I don't know if it's a combination of gay guys and morbidly obese women, but they're really trying to push the average girl out. And again, we're just talking about regular women here. The WNBA players are not regular women. These boxers, clearly not regular women. The push for everyone to be ugly and possibly a man is so strong right now that you have to wonder where it's coming from. It sounds like a joke, but it's reality. And if you're paying attention, you're going to see this. Everywhere on TV, it's ugly people. It's interracial things that don't make sense. Nobody actually cares about the race of the person, but when you have a Chinese guy and a black lady producing, a Norwegian kid, people are just like, what's going on here? And you start to think that maybe you don't actually care about the stuff. You're just like, throw in whatever race we can. When you got a black couple with an Indian kid, and then the producer's like, people can't tell, you're probably wondering in the audience, like, do they think I'm stupid? I think they think we're stupid. I think that they are just so desperate to throw any people in there that they don't care about their own prejudices and how that looks. They just think that the audience is stupid, and they just see, guy from Nigeria, and we're going to buy your product more. No, we just want it to make sense. What doesn't make sense is women in baggy suits. What doesn't make sense is women fighting men in boxing. And what doesn't make sense is two white guys with a Malaysian child. Maybe it's Ian Miles Chong. Shout out Ian. But none of it's making sense. And the more it doesn't make sense is the more that they break you down, right? The more that they put men in boxing rings to punch women in the face, the more you're tolerant of it. And it's more that the tolerant position becomes all of a sudden out of nowhere, okay, this might be a guy, this might be a person with too much testosterone to fight a woman, but let's let him do it. That would be mean. And that's the problem there. That is the push where it's just tolerate everything or else you're mean. So that when the government comes in and locks down your business and they say you can't go outside, you're just like, I let everything go anyways. What's one more thing? And then you're in the gulags, people.
Turn it up, Jordan.